Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of I Wish They Knew, a show where business and educational leaders share a tip, practice, or insight they wish others knew more about. I'm Joe Hirsch, and today's wish comes from Art Markman. Art is the director of the IC Squared Institute at the University of Texas at Austin, where he's also a professor of psychology and marketing. He's the author of many books, most recently, Bring Your Brain to Work, which is something that we should all be doing a lot more of these days. Art, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Joe. It's great to be here.
So before we dig in, what is something that everybody out there listening should know more about you?
So, I would say that for me, it's that the path through life has all sorts of twists and turns in it, and you never know which things that you do are going to end up having an impact. So, for example, in the most recent book, I have a whole bunch of sections on the jazz brain, which I put in there because in my mid-30s, I decided to learn to play the saxophone, thinking it would just get me away from work a little bit, which it did. And ultimately, I started playing in a band. But all of that fed back into the way that I think about the way that we engage with the world in general. So all of these pieces fit together in ways that are utterly unexpected. And to me, that's the most fun bit of my life has been trying to figure out how all of these unexpected things are going to end up having an impact that I didn't anticipate.
Yeah, and sometimes the things that sound the most beautiful are the ones that we didn't expect to play at first.
Exactly right. Exactly.
Lovely.
Right.
I have to hear you play sometime. That would be great.
There's a couple of videos on YouTube. So
go check that out. We'll put that in the show notes. So this show is actually about one simple question, and we ask it of all of our guests, and now I'll ask it to you. What is something that you wish more people knew about?
So one of the things that I often try to say is that it's much better to be resilient in life than it is to be right about the things that you do. And in particular, we spend a lot of time when faced with a big decision in life, worried, am I going to make the right decision? Am I going to make the optimal decision? And there are almost no situations in life in which the decision you make then leads an entire process to run out all by itself. But instead, it's the beginning of a process of living your life where you have opportunities to influence what happens next and where you have to learn how to deal with the inevitable setbacks. And so it's much more important to think about how to implement your life in the right way than it is to figure out what is the ideal decision to make in any given situation.
That's got to be hard for a lot of people, certainly now where there's such a bias towards action. People just want to do something. So what is getting in the way of more people adopting this slower approach to decision making and to living your life in slow motion?
Yeah, I think one of the things that makes it hard for people is that they take a lot of responsibility on themselves to be the decision maker. And I think one of the things that we need to do is to recognize that it takes a village to do things effectively, and that part of slowing things down is enabling you to engage with lots of other people, to have discussions with people. And those discussions not only provide information, but they also give you a network of people that you can rely on as you begin to move forward with the implementation of something. Because whatever it is, there's almost nothing that we do that you can do successfully alone. You have to engage with other people. And I think to the extent that you bring people into the process of discussion as you're framing a decision, you also create more investment in those people in the outcome, which then enables you to call on them later when changes need to be made.
So who would be part of that trusted group that you turn to when you need to make decisions? If you're the leader of your team, does that mean turning to team members? If you're running a business, does that mean looking to other employees? Who should be part of this group? Those closest to you or those outside your natural day-to-day?
I think it's both, right? You certainly, for example, if you're in a leadership role, you definitely want to make sure that you engage with the people who are the boots on the ground. one of the fascinating things about being in leadership roles is that, often you work your way up through your career or work your way up through an organization. And suddenly you find that there's insulation between you and what's happening at the front lines of your organization. And it's really important to get those people involved, because they're the ones who are dealing with customers, with clients, in universities, with students. And if you don't understand that experience, then you may make bad decisions. So it's important to bring people inside into the decision-making process. But it's also important to get people who bring an outside perspective, and particularly one that's going to really push you to understand the assumptions that you've made. When you act quickly, when you act on the basis of those gut instincts, you are using essentially the statistics of your world to help you make a decision. You are using the sum total of all the things you've experienced before to give you a feel for what does the right thing to do seem to be. And so what that means is your decisions are going to fit with your past experience. A lot of what's required, particularly in difficult circumstances, and if you think about the pandemic that we face right now, as well as some of the civil unrest that's also characterized the last several months, we are in an environment in which past behavior is not necessarily a good indication of what we should do in the future, which means we need people who are going to push us to question our assumptions and to really push us to articulate why we think that we should move forward in a particular way. And the advantage of articulating that is that it gives you action paths to take, so that as you move forward, when something goes wrong, you've already begun to anticipate that things could happen that go sideways, and have other options at your disposal that you can bring to bear to try to move forward. So having both that interior perspective and the exterior one turns out to be important.
So slowing down and bringing people along are two ways
That's right.
to help make better decisions and to be more resilient in the face of the setbacks that inevitably occur.
That's right. That's right. And then the last thing that I think is really important is you got to give yourself a break. I think that particularly if you end up in a leadership role, there's this expectation that every decision is going to go right, and that you are going to be evaluated on the basis of did you take the right initial step.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, what you're going to be evaluated on is two things. One, did you get to a good outcome in the end, even if it wasn't the one that you anticipated? And did you do it in a way that fits with your values? And it's much more important to take steps that are true to yourself and your organization, and that you wind up in a good place and bring everyone there together, than it is to have been right on day one.
That's fantastic advice, and something that really everyone should know more about. Art, thank you so much. Before we let you go, where can people go to find out more about you?
So thanks so much, by the way, Joe. It's been great to talk to you today. I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook. I post links to I write for Psychology Today, for Fast Company, as well as the books. You can if you find me on social media. I also have a website, smartthinkingbook.com, that has links to a variety of places where I write, as well as my books.
Fantastic. We'll put those up in the show notes. Art, thanks for sharing your wish today.
My pleasure.